Okay, we're live.
All
Red
right.
light's on.
Good, here we are. Okay. This is the meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee this evening on June 3rd. We have a couple of people absent, but we'll be starting and continuing the work that we did last week, which is going through the different goals and trying to figure out our SMART allocation in terms of what are the most strategic and accessible and relevant and what those other acronyms all stood for that we'll all remember as we get going here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, let me just see if I can pull it up on my computer here first for a second. Somewhere. We should have finished, we were at goal 1 and goal 2, so where does this go, Francis? Do you have a little clicker thing, or is this it? So, at this point, I don't see that we have any public comment, so I guess we'll continue with the meeting here. Cindy's not here. I don't know if we have any meeting minutes from last time, so should we hold on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there was, I don't remember seeing anything. I know she's out of the country actually, so with that, we'll dig into our matrix here, I think, and see what we can do. Okay. No, I'm not sure I know how to manipulate those guys, though.
I have it on
You
mine.
have it in yours?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'm sure mine will plug in.
What was the question about 4E? What were we questioning about, whether that was even
I think if we
doable?
could actually, because the goal is to use CPA funds, to convert into rentals and whatnot. And I know Mike had expressed concern about the town itself being
Oh, a landlord.
a landlord, plus if CPA funds could actually be used for.
Well, what, the 10% is designated affordable or housing. Yeah, for affordable housing. So what are the ways that they could be used? That funding could be used.
So, being on the housing, I have a little expertise, not as much as I'd like. But one of the things it could be used for that is helpful to make it worthwhile, for example, for a developer, is a lot of times when you have affordable housing, it comes with requirements, which includes, for example, the home must have all its appliances, and so you could use CPA funds to buy the appliances. So the builder isn't investing in the appliances, and so it just makes it more attractive for the builder. I believe you can, through setting up a trust, buy property as a housing authority in town, but I remember Jenica Reynolds saying that this was really risky because, never mind if you're going to rent and you're going to be a landlord as a town, but even as an owner of a piece of property, even for a day, if it can be sold and turned that quickly, there's risks in a town owning a piece of property if the place burns down or
Right.
there's
The liabilities we might have.
there's some liability issues, which I'm not entirely clear on, but I do remember succinctly that being an area that was problematic, which is why, to this date, that hasn't been pursued in this town. Now, we're meeting as a housing authority next,
It was tonight.
no, I don't think it's tonight.
It was at 6 o'clock. Janet went to a meeting, and she and Charlie were there. I know. She came home.
It's the 10th, I thought. I thought it was next week. I have it on my calendar, it's next Monday.
Okay. Well, then they came a week early.
Or I'm wrong, but I thought it was the 10th. So anyway, that's one of the things we can raise again.
So you've named appliances as being.
It's something that is very doable, but you have to have a unit to.
Correct.
Yes.
But surely CPA, given that there's a designation, a whole fund for affordable housing,
Right.
it would be interesting to know from Virginia and maybe from other towns how those funds are used beyond, surely they must be used in some way beyond buying appliances. That's very limited in there.
It is.
So maybe we got snagged there.
Yeah.
Do the rest of the structures look the same? Are they all built the same? Is
No,
there-
I think,
and-
no, I just think
Oh,
it's
yeah,
within a
6
certain
o'clock.
price range.
Yeah, Yeah.
6 o'clock tonight.
But I
It's
mean, if
not
we
like
get a-
standardized housing,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
just in a certain price.
I mean, here, someone, a developer, if they wanted to develop more than 9 homes,
Yeah.
if the threshold is 10, if they were to build 10 new homes, one would have to be
Right.
an affordable house. Which means, yeah, they don't all have to look the same, be the same in that instance, but, you know, how they've done it is most developers are building 9 or less houses in order not to meet that threshold and not have to do it.
Well, that's why we were discussing last
But,
time of
yeah,
trying to lower the
right.
threshold.
That's another avenue for pursuit that the housing authority is looking at.
I
And
think
maybe you
that's-
could soften that blow with, you know, small things like appliances and just,
I guess the question I have, if a developer were to, you know, buy a tract of land, let's say we set it at 5, so they build 5 homes, and then somewhere 3 years later, they build 5 more. Is that
In the
still
same
considered
piece.
same with a part of the same kind of development area, or are those considered 2 separate transactions, and then they would not pass that threshold?
I guess you have to see if there's some type of statute of limitations
Yeah.
in building.
Yeah, okay.
There's a,
Interesting to find out.
Because I don't know that, you know, there aren't some, I mean, there's some pretty big developments that have happened. I don't know if they were built before we adopted this 10-home.
That was only adopted several years ago.
So
Probably
then,
also-
so then
Red Brook
probably,
went in
that's
before
the big
that.
development I'm thinking of, okay.
do you know?
So Red Brook wouldn't
I
have
guess-
fallen under the 10.
I guess you'd probably have to, like, what constitutes a development? You know,
Well, I think it was,
like, what's the definition? Is
I
it?
don't- I don't have that much history, but I think it's also was the timing. I think, wasn't Red Brook before?
Well, that's what we were just talking
Right,
about, yeah.
right.
Because that's the largest one that I think of as a new development, but,
But I don't think that issue has come up yet.
Right,
You know, if someone's
okay.
added on to a development since then.
Well, that's another thing too, is, you know, you have to, we talked about this in the meetings, is you have to be careful because someone could develop, you know, 9 5-unit, you know, piece and then walk away and come back in 5 years and develop some more.
Right. So there's
Usually for developers, that's harder to do than you think. It's a way to skirt around possibly, but it's, you know, time is money and you don't know what the market's going to be like, and you know, but there's a lot of, you know, there's several, this is all predates this bylaw, I think, but off of Pomeroy Meadow, you know, what, Capeland Drive and Golden Circle, there's some developments there that I think
yeah.
can see 9 or 10, so they, Red Brook is not the one, it's just the one that
Right.
is largest.
right, it is the
probably.
largest, that's what made me think of it, yeah.
Okay, well, as we keep on going, we're
Okay,
we're
so
gonna try and
I'm just
score
going to put a
yeah.
note here that maybe one of our comments we might want to make on this one is that we have, I guess, the zoning board consider lowering the threshold in terms of the numbers of units before an affordable unit kicks in. I mean, should I bother putting that in, or as a comment, if that's how the group feels? I mean, on my notes.
I think it's worth putting in, I mean,
Okay.
I would.
All right, so I'm just going to put it.
Oh, right, for 140.
Right, so I'm just going to put here.
For 4D, yeah. Can you manage, it could be under the notes on 4D, right?
Yeah, let me just put,
But that note, Francine, you're
Up
putting
one.
It goes up one. It
Yeah,
goes up
you're
to
putting
4D.
on 4E, should go on 4D.
It's adapting the zoning bylaw for the inclusion.
Yeah. And I have to say, I did make an error. It is on my calendar for tonight at 6.
Guess you missed it. They didn't have a quorum there.
Whoops.
I don't know. There's only 3 of us. Well, actually, yeah.
2 out of 3.
I think there should
Yeah,
be
so
more
I
than
think-
3 on the committee.
I think last time, the 1.4E, the issue was, I think Mike was just, you know, concerned about the idea of the town being a landlord and what comes along with that.
Right.
And the other question was, are we eligible for this, the state funds at $400,000?
Now, are you referring to 4E still or 4F?
4F, to continue to seek funds and implement community development block grant.
Yeah, and
Were we eligible?
correct, that was.
Right.
That was the question.
That was
And
the-
I think regarding 4E, we should try to learn more too.
Yeah.
First by going to Virginia and asking
Okay.
Yeah.
how she sees those funds potentially being used, and she
Okay.
may well know what other communities.
Okay. So I'll just
Right,
put
have
a
other
question mark
communities
there.
done that? It sounds like a good idea, but is it even worth doing?
But surely, given that there's a category of 10% for affordable
Oh,
housing,
sure.
there are ways to,
I was going to look at
The
that master list that she
communities have
handed
to-
out, remember at town meeting, that she listed all the projects that
that have taken place,
CPA
but
funded, but I
no,
don't think there's anything on there
No.
for housing that I recall when I
no.
looked at it. I mean, there's many other things, but not for housing. So there's a whole section of that fund that's not been used at all. from
And
what
I
can
think it's
see.
quite extensive. Do you know what that is, Jim? It's something like $480,000, isn't it?
I don't know.
And is that, a silly question maybe, but if that isn't used, does that accumulate or is
I
it?
think so. That would be an acute, and I'm not sure of that figure. That's something
Yeah.
I have in my head, but
Okay.
it may be in there.
Are you helping us take notes, Francine?
I'm just writing the comments here
That'd be
so that
great.
we have them
Yeah,
going forward.
all right.
Okay,
Computer's doing something
so
weird.
I guess that finishes all the goals for 1, all the strategies for 1, and that brings us to 2. Which is support the establishment of a greenway that would connect the historic center of town to Easthampton's Manhattan Trail.
Right, okay.
Okay,
So just to go back on 4E, 4F, we're not going to score those, we're just going to leave them.
right, we just
Okay.
have the questions.
All right. And then,
So,
do we want to mention that bit about the landowner, the town being a landowner out there somewhere too? As Mike's concerned, we'll get last time.
That would go on 4E.
E.
over here. Let me just continue it here.
So when you say Chris not scored, you're not going to
We're
put the
Not to
yes,
put the yeses or nos in there, since we need to sort of get a little bit more information just to find out what's been done and
Okay.
what's even possible to do.
Okay, so we're looking here.
Yeah, okay. So we'll go to strategy 2, number 1A. So support the establishment of a greenway that would connect historic center of town to Easthampton's Manhattan Trail. So is that specific?
Yes.
Seems to be.
Is it specific enough?
Well,
Like what, fund it or just try to make it happen?
Support, yes. What does support mean?
Like the support have to be a little more specific.
okay. So it's a little vague on support. So maybe it's not.
Well, that means that would come with the purchase of the rail bed or the rental of the rail bed, right? I don't think it's different from the proposed bike path, is it?
No, I think it's the same thing. That's the way I would read it.
Yeah, the way I read it, it's the same thing. So they're
That's the way
choosing
I
to
read
call it a greenway rather
Yeah,
than a bike
right.
path, and,
Okay.
but
So maybe
it says
it's-
to Easthampton's Manhattan Trail, but what about on the other side to Westfield?
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to run the full length.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of that. I thought
Well, I
it
think a-
stops right at Sheldon's,
I think a
don't
lot of
think it
people
goes-
have written it off at Sheldon's because it's
Yeah.
really not.
Oh, because then they have to
Yeah.
cross the highway and
Yeah.
all of that, okay,
I think that,
okay.
I think
It
that,
might be something down the
I'll be
line.
happy if we get the
Yeah.
Sheldons.
Incremental progress.
yeah, so I think
Hey, Sheldon's is a good stuff.
Right.
that it's
All right.
probably from Sheldon's rather than down toward Westfield is what
So
I last.
we're looking at
said.
measurable,
So,
yes.
it's
Yes.
measurable, attainable,
Yeah.
Well, if the whole, the greenway has to go through for it to become attainable, but it is attainable, that can happen.
I mean, various conditions have to be in place, but it's
Yeah.
not, it's not
Yes.
an impossibility, I suppose. Relevant, I think so.
So we're saying that a yes for that.
I think so.
We can say it's relevant because there was a comment in the feedback from the original survey to the master plan. I would say
Yep.
it remains relevant.
Time-bound, I think this is the one where we had
most
an
things
issue with
are.
all of these, and none of these are really time-bound the way
We
they're
know
written.
this one isn't.
Yeah, this one is,
So I would put
Endless.
not one. I don't know. It should be.
The only thing that might make it time-bound is, are there time limits for grant applications?
All right.
And that I don't.
Well, and
know.
there
I'm looking
were-
at that Smarty thing that Mike had sent out, and, you know, for time, can a time frame be set for completion?
yeah.
Not until the negotiations have been successful.
But we do have a memorandum of understanding with the railroad to start doing something. It's been there for a year to look at the whole railroad.
1 year, okay.
So hopefully that hasn't expired, but also, I don't know that the MOU itself would expire, but we're also on the Department of Transport's list, I believe, for, I think it was for 2023, to possibly access, I think it was something like $600,000
More money, yes.
toward this as well. And it was just a question of how
Needed.
that money could be used and whether we're still on that list. So there's pieces that were put in place months ago, if not more than a year ago, that I think part of the issue was we talked about was having, I think the select board was going to have the new Greenway, the new Greenway Committee chair.
Come in and give an update.
Come and give an update to find out what's happening. given
Who
that-
is that chair?
Paul Fergal. So Mike Bueller is no longer the chair, and so
But he remains on.
he's on the committee, I believe. But Mike Fergal is that person, so hopefully we can find out from him soon what's happening in that regard. But it would definitely, so I think the time bound we have to leave open like we've left it for many of the
Right.
others. I mean, it's not, nothing that's really written so well that it's very time bound.
So how have you been marking those that are not bound?
We've just been left,
We've
we've
just
just
been
left
leaving
it blank.
Pretty much all
For most of the
time-bound.
time-bound ones, they're-
blank.
All
The
right,
way they're
so
written is kind of sketchy on those, so,
Not
but
saying no, just leaving it.
just leaving it blank,
Right.
and knowing that it's probably got to be retouched and rewritten a little bit, it could be made time-bound, but the way it's stated right here is not terribly
Well, we
great.
had discussed last meeting that pretty much everything is in time-bound the way these are written at this point, so we'd go through and then go back and try to
Try to figure that out, yeah.
Maybe it needs to
Yeah.
be more specific to, include a time frame.
Yeah.
and once we talk to others, we may get
Right.
that information.
And whether this is inclusive and equitable, anybody?
Yeah.
We think.
I think so. It's a public
I
space.
think it would be,
Right.
yeah. And I think one of the things that we could find out, it has come to my attention anyway, that there was a bill that our state rep had put forth about supporting the Greenway and using CPA funds to actually purchase some land for the Greenway, for the rail trails. So when we next see Ms. Sabadosa, that will be a question to find out, because that was a bill apparently that got put forward a few months ago, and I don't know that's happened, anything's happened to it.
And in case people don't know, she's coming on Saturday to talk to the Democratic Town Committee here in the building at 10 o'clock on
This Saturday.
Saturday. I mean, it's just information.
But I think she's one of the sponsors of this bill, so that would be good to find out if it's just, just sitting somewhere. It doesn't seem, when I tried to research it, I didn't see that it had any action on it in terms of any kind of voting yet, but.
I think I would maybe just make a note, instead of support the, just supporting the establishment, I would maybe make it more specific at saying, like you're saying, buying the railroad, then like that would be helping this cause. Just to make it a little more specific. Or finding the funding, or something more specific.
But can we change the language actually in the plan? I'm not.
I don't know if we're doing that yet.
Probably not at this point.
Just
I
maybe
mean,
that.
I think we might have to go back.
We'll
yeah.
go back through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think once we
Yeah.
get into our
What does
recommendations, we
support
might
mean?
Right,
We're
yeah.
just-
So
okay.
that it could be more actionable, I think. Because at one point, we talked about doing what you had suggested, Jim, about going back and putting a cost factor on it as well at some point too. So, that would be an issue as we go back on that. So, okay, moving on. All right. Sorry. Where are we? establish an annual or biannual agritourism day, which would open local farms to the public or farm tours, selling of farm products and special events.
You gotta ask the farmers if they want to do it.
True. Certainly an early reaction I had was not overly favorable toward the idea.
But it's very
I
specific.
think
Very
this
specific.
is very specific.
Okay.
It's certainly measurable.
Yeah.
Attainable depends on the will of,
Right, I mean, it's attainable.
Participants.
Yeah,
well, the
attainable. Is it
participants.
feasible? Do we have control?
So you
or
want me to leave
influence over the
attainable
outcome?
blank until we hear from, we know that farmers want to participate in this, or?
I don't know if the agriculture committee's been talking about this at all. Anybody have a clue? Anybody? I mean, I think it's, the question is going to be location, number one. Location, frequency, and willing participants. I mean, actually, I think it was just in the news, I think it's South Hadley that's actually closing their farmers market because they don't have enough vendors.
Well, again, this is a tourism day, not necessarily a farmer's market.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
Right.
True.
It's
Yes,
opening
it's
farms,
very different.
opening farms to the public.
Yeah.
Right, we have Old Home Days, used to be
Right.
called, right? It's that kind of thing. It's a once a year or maybe twice a year.
Yeah.
And maybe you combine it with,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's not a bad idea.
That's true. Okay.
but you're right, it's up to the farmers. So, I mean, it's certainly attainable. There's no column for, is there a will or?
Yeah. You're right, a willingness, that's right.
All right, so I'll leave that one blank.
Relevancy, I think it's relevant.
Oh, so.
Well, that's a
speaking
good
of, it's,
question.
well, relevant to the overarching goal. The overarching goal for this section is maintain and expand recreational opportunities connected to Southampton's natural, cultural, and recreational resources and market as an economic development opportunity.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I
So
think it's
that's
relevant.
relevant. Sure.
agreed.
It sure sounds like it to me, yeah.
Yep. Well, time bound, this one actually does say annual or biannual, so in that
Yeah.
sense, it's actually more time bound than a couple of the others are.
Can a time frame be set for completion?
Okay. All right, inclusive. Certainly.
Anyone can go on a
is.
tour,
I mean, People
right.
choose to, participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Equitable,
Equitable.
Uh-huh.
seems to be.
Don't see why not. Yeah. And I think
Excludes no one.
it's interesting because we go through these, there isn't a specific mention as we go through all of these that I see right here under this this goal about having a farmer's market, but that was definitely in the plan.
It is interesting because it's interesting you
specifically-
strayed into farmer's market because we spent a lot of time talking about farmers.
It was specifically mentioned somewhere.
It's
in the
nowhere in
plan.
this section?
Well,
It might be under economic development.
okay, could be in a different place rather than here, understand.
Let me see.
But
Doesn't sound like it, but
that's why I went off onto the idea of the farmer's market, because that's what I had in mind. But
Yeah.
this is very specifically not saying that. It's interesting. So maybe it does go under another.
it might be under something else.
Well, we'll just make a note of that. Maybe we just put farmer's market question mark on the note, just so that we don't forget that we had that idea. Interesting. And we do have, obviously, some people that are, certainly the Fletchers are doing their, at least once a year, if not twice a year, George, I don't know. The farm is open, that they've got people that come and,
Yeah, I mean, usually like Cabot does, this year's actually Cabot's 100-year anniversary, I think, so they're doing, open farm weekend.
so there's some of that that happens. We just-
And Tom Bashista does it on his
Right.
own, with he has numerous events, I think, but I guess it requires coordination to,
Yeah.
and a great deal of effort too, if you're gonna have special events and open your farm. What liability is involved there when you open your farm to the public?
That's a good question.
Get kicked by a cow?
I would bet, it would have to be.
Yeah.
I would think so.
Well, I'm sure people have to carry the insurance on their property and their animals, I'm sure, in case something happens like that. But have an animal run loose and knock down somebody or something, that's always a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, anyhow, okay. Go to 3, strategy 2, 1C. Create an agricultural farm brochure that identifies all farms in Southampton, commodities sold, hours of operation, seasonal operations, and location map. Make the brochure available on the town website and at town hall. Well, to my knowledge, that is done. I'm
I
not
was
sure, I
gonna
haven't looked
say,
at it on the
yes, that was
website, but
done,
it's certainly
yeah.
a brochure downstairs.
Yeah.
So that
Is
has
that
happened.
conservation lands or ag lands?
This was all farms, so it's a separate map from the conservation map
Okay.
itself. But if I recall, it had like 13 or 14 on there, and I'm not sure everybody's on there. It may have been a question, again, of people that were willing to participate in being on there.
Well,
So there may
a
be
question
others.
of funding too. Who paid, do you know who paid
I
for
believe
that?
the Ag Commission themselves paid for it, is what I believe I heard from Tom Bishop at one point when I asked him about it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Out of an annual budget?
Well, out of something, or out of the pocket, out of pocket, I don't know, because he was not thrilled by it. It was sort of a comment of like, well, where is the town in helping us put this out?
That's what
kind
I
of thing.
was remembering.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that it had
Yeah.
been done, but I
So-
know there was a question of the town not funding
Yeah,
it.
the brochure
So it needs
exists.
continued funding then.
Yeah,
Or
and,
to
you know,
update
is
it,
it,
it would.
maybe, is it up to date, is it all-inclusive? I mean, I don't know. There's so many, different kinds of agriculture going on in town these days, from, the blueberries to the bees to whatever, but it's not just the dairy and horses that you think of offhand.
Right,
There's
we
many other
might,
things going on.
inclusive, we might leave blank and equitable, just because we're not
Does
sure.
that include some of the more unusual, obscure things?
Less traditional idea of funding, but nonetheless.
Well, I think it's, I'm sure they did a good job with what they had at the time. I'm just wondering if everybody was really,
So you want me to take out inclusive?
Possibly.
I think so. I
It's
wouldn't
just
put
how
a
it's-
no, but it's like the other unknowns. We don't
leave
know.
it blank and just see. There may
Same
be,
with
well,
equitable.
How up to date is it?
I think it's been done within the last 2-3 years, so it's not too far out of date. I can't imagine. But again, whether it was just those who wanted to participate in that 12 or 13 that are in there represent a certain number out of 20 that may exist, or
I mean, I think in
I
like
don't know.
Grindstone is a new name.
Yeah.
Same place, but new name.
Right.
Blueberry Farm is new
Right,
people.
new people, right, exactly. So
Well, that
that needs
is-
some updates then, if nothing else. But, I mean, locations
Right.
haven't changed, but the naming might, yeah. Chris.
I think it would be a good idea also to consult the Ag Commission to see what they have to say about
Yeah.
it, because we can't really know. They would know
Right.
better than we do.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a follow-up issue. All right. That's something I can do. That was part of my charge at one point, was following up with the ag people anyway. Okay, 1D, are we ready to move on? Are we okay? You want to leave equitable as well, or?
Yeah, they said
Both?
leave
I
it
think
blank.
so.
So
Okay. 1D, create a walking tour and brochure of publicly accessible recreational, cultural, and historical sites in Southampton. Make the brochure available on the town website and town hall. Now,
Didn't they start a walking tour map? Somewhere there were some loops that were being considered, and we talked about them. What?
I know we talked about walking loops.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
we
don't know if
did,
that
and
was
how
like tours
impractical.
or
Yeah.
anything.
Oh,
yeah.
so
So the walking loops
Walking
were
tour.
not necessarily the same as the conservation areas.
I think that
No,
was for
they
purely like
had a
exercise
few-
reasons.
Yeah.
odd, just circuits on streets
Mhm.
without any parking designated.
Yeah.
It was a.
Right. But there are, the actual conservation lands, there's a map for each of those. I mean,
Correct.
The
But this is,
publicly accessible recreational, cultural, and historical sites in Southampton.
yeah.
So I'm thinking like a downtown walk, I don't know. Like
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think we have one
once
falling
or
apart
twice a
down
year.
Town Hall.
And once or twice a year, they have, historic homes,
Right.
open houses.
Mhm.
I would think that would be part of this one.
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And they were going to go do the little tour at the lead mine recently, that I think they got rained out,
Yeah.
didn't they, or something? So there's some there's some efforts there.
Right.
But this is talking about making a brochure.
Right,
Right. It's hard to make a brochure unless you have regularly scheduled things.
yeah.
Right, like
Or
things
it's
that
a
are open
map
all the
of
time.
different sites
Yeah.
that people would just do as they wish, but
I think there,
Certainly
somewhere,
trails and things like
yeah,
that.
somewhere I think I have seen a map though of interesting sites in Southampton. Seems to me that exists somewhere.
Name four.
Downtown. Downtown. I'm trying to think. Well, the canal by Lyman's. What else do we know?
well, the schoolhouse and
The schoolhouse,
Clark
yeah.
Chapman,
Yeah.
Clark Chapman, yeah.
For sure.
The lead mine.
the cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
historical, cultural, and recreational. So, I
Right.
mean,
So
And
any
that
of
would
the
include all
walking
of it,
trails,
Yeah.
yeah.
field,
Yeah.
park,
So,
right?
So measurable, yes.
library, things like that.
Is it attainable?
I think it's attainable.
yeah, I
If
think so.
somebody does it, sure.
See, it's that column again that says willing, or owner, right? Because it's attainable, it's, who's going to own it? In a case like this,
Well, it'd have to be,
So according to
And yeah,
Mike's,
who would pay for the,
right.
according to Mike's
Printing of the brochure.
definitions, attainable is defined as, is it feasible? Do we have control or influence over the outcome?
who's we, so the town,
I guess, or
just someone.
the proverbial who that's writing these goals.
It's going to have influence. I don't know whether we'd have control over it. I mean,
So what do you want to do? Attainable, leave blank?
A lot of questions. Anytime I have questions, I feel
Okay,
go
then
blank.
let's then.
Well, I mean, I think it's okay, because even Mike was saying, we're putting a lot of yeses down, like there's
Yeah.
gonna be
Okay.
some
Yeah.
like no's or,
and again, understanding whether these trails or loops exist versus whether there's a brochure about them. I mean, it's
Right.
kind of like a bifurcated question here too.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, there's one on like Thomas or David or something off of Palmery Meadow. Have you ever gone to that one?
No?
That's
Oh,
the
that's the
Nancy
Nancy
Whittemore.
Whittemore one.
That's, yeah, it's not off of either of those.
Yeah, it's further up on Palmer Meadow.
It's the one in the asparagus field.
Yes. Used to be our cow pasture actually out there.
Asparagus field.
Well, it's houses now.
Yeah, it used to be.
I can't remember the name of the street.
Yeah.
It's the last cut-in off of Pomeroy Meadow on the right.
It's down past Susan and David and those.
I think it's like
Yeah.
Meadow Street.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cul-de-sac and,
Uh-huh. What do you mean?
Excuse me,
Blanking
yeah.
on the
Yeah,
name.
I think it's one that has.
but it is called the Nancy Whittemore.
Yeah, not sure that it's been maintained very much lately.
Well, it's funny, that was one of the trails, poor Mike Bueller, a year ago this past spring, kept trying to organize these trail clearing parties for Saturday. It kept raining, I don't know if you remember, and that was one of the sites they were going to go to. I
Yeah, I
remember
think that's a
now.
trail that needs a lot of
So
help.
I don't know if it's gotten any help since then, but if it hasn't, that's over a year
Yeah.
of clearing
Yeah,
it.
that's, yeah. Okay, so relevant, and where are we at? Relevant, time bound?
So relevant, yes?
Relevant, I think so, yeah.
So,
Time
I
bound?
think it's time bound. I mean, you can, you can say we could get it done in the next month if we wanted to. It's just
Yeah.
figuring out.
It would be
What we put
inclusive
up.
and equitable theoretically,
think
assuming
so.
that the sites are accessible to persons.
Well, yeah, that's the
You know,
other
if
thing.
persons-
We haven't done a whole lot in terms of,
Yeah.
that I'm aware of in terms of accessibility.
right, some trails are ADA compliant now, and there's things that,
Right.
like crushed stone, so that you can actually
Right.
wheelchair
Right.
through it.
Certain materials, yep.
Uh-huh, and I
And
doubt
certain,
very
and
much.
ropes
Yeah.
and things for
Right.
people who need to hold on and,
Right. So the equitable question would be maybe a question mark, since we don't know that. Much of it's been thought about.
Inclusive and.
and equitable, yes.
Plus, I mean, some of the historic houses, I mean, are they
No.
Yeah, they
ADA
wouldn't.
accessible?
But then the question is, can they be made? Certainly not all trails can be made accessible,
Right.
or
Yeah.
should
Miles
be.
of trails
Yeah.
Yeah,
in the
and-
woods.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do certain like sections
Sections.
of
Yes.
them. And
Yes.
The beginning
and I think
loops or
that's,
something.
yeah,
Right, small beginning loop,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
But you're right, the historical buildings would not be
That'd be tough.
That's
handicapped.
always been a big
Yeah.
issue,
Mhm.
because landmarks have been pretty much exempt.
So to be consistent, are we gonna leave those blank rather than a question mark, or?
Well, I guess we'd have to see, can they be made accessible? Can they be made inclusive and equitable? That would be a question we would have to ask. It isn't making the decision, it is or it isn't, it's just,
Do we want to put a little note there, maybe to the right, to explain that then?
Yep.
We'll remember it in the moment, but I'm channeling my own lack of memory, as evidenced by the fact that I confirmed I would go to the Housing Authority meeting tonight, and I didn't. So,
okay.
Yeah. So what level of
should
accessibility?
rely
is-
on
yeah,
me for
right.
memory.
Good. Yeah. Okay.
That's overscheduled, that's the problem.
All righty. Okay. All right, next one then. 1E, is that where we are?
Mhm.
Work with interested landowners, oops, sorry. To make key privately owned recreational trails on land open to the public. Well, we've got Alder Pond for one.
I'm aware of one in my neighborhood. If you ask them, they'll let you walk it.
We could argue that this series of grant-funded dinners we had to bring the public in, talking about giving people ideas of what they could do with their land, is kind of working toward that goal. Work with interested landowners to make key privately owned recreational trails open.
Well, it's not too specific about who the interested landowners are. It hasn't identified the landowners. Interested is pretty broad.
Yes.
Oh, I don't know.
I guess I also just feel like if the landowner was interested in doing this, it would just be done.
Yeah,
Well, it's probably done on a more individual, I know you basis than,
yeah.
I mean, if I don't know this, but if I drove up to the site, knocked on the door and said, can I walk? Would the person say, sure?
Yeah. I mean, we were just told to ask. It's off of, the back off of Miller, Edwards or something, and it's really nice. I mean, a lot of horse trails that you also walk them. But someone said, it's private, but if you ask, they'll say yes, and so we did.
And I think that might be true of a lot of landowners. It's just the courtesy of
Yeah.
a request as opposed to people
Just
assuming
showing
they
them
can.
Just showing up and
Yeah.
walking.
And
Right.
walking.
Ooh, get out of my
Mhm.
yard.
Yeah, so it may be more just neighborhood specific rather than generally publicized in
Right.
terms of what's
So
available, so.
specific, yes or no? I mean,
I don't think so.
I don't think
Not
it
really.
is.
I don't think so.
okay.
You're eager with your whys.
But I think it would be measurable, wouldn't it? I mean, you can determine how many,
I
it's
think
kinda
a certain number of
measurable.
landowners would do it, right?
Measurable.
Should be attainable,
Could be,
if
sure.
those are.
You have
Why
to
do
reach
those
out.
letters look different? Every other one is different. Every other line.
Right.
Line is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, that's true.
Some bigger
Okay.
font for some reason.
Feels
Bigger
like
font.
I'm not doing anything any different.
So it's attainable, we think, yeah, and it's relevant?
Sure.
Yeah.
I do think it's relevant.
Well, what happened there?
And,
Well, relevant to the overarching goal.
Okay, relevant.
Of creating more recreational
Yeah.
space.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Time bound again, are we still stuck with that one?
I can pass that over.
Yeah, I feel like
Yes,
that would be
no.
a tough.
Pass it over?
Yeah.
Leave it empty?
Okay.
Okay.
It's
Would
also one of those
be,
ongoing things, probably.
And it's only inclusive and equitable if it's not this private arrangement.
Yeah.
Because as long,
But it would be open to completely the
Right.
public.
that's right, as opposed to getting permission first it's assumed if you ask, they'll say yes, but we don't know if that happens 100% of the time. Maybe someone asks and they say no.
Right.
And if they're
For a valid reason, I mean, the
Yeah.
timing or something,
Yeah.
yeah.
right.
And is it true, like, if you have land in chapter, is that public land too? Does that, no?
No. In chapter 61B.
For recreation, I guess.
Recreation it is, but not for the open, that's divided into two segments,
Right.
open space and
Yeah.
recreation, so the open space
So only the
is not.
61B would be
I
possible.
have a question for recreational, in chapter. If a fee is charged to use that facility, is that still considered chapter?
Right.
I would have thought it wouldn't be eligible to have a fee.
There's something in
That's
that
a good
brochure.
question. Can you charge a
you missed.
fee for something that's basically
In chapter.
public trust? Isn't that kind
No,
of
it's
a-
not public trust.
No.
It's just, it's designated open space for recreational purposes. And I believe it's in chapter.
It's a good question,
I
because,
wouldn't
I
think
mean,
you
you'd
could charge-
And I
essentially
mean,
be
the public can
profiting.
use it, but they would need to pay a fee to use it.
The question is, where's that money going?
Right, my
Yeah.
gut says if someone's getting a tax break, right?
Correct.
And if that happens, and then you're charging the public,
That doesn't sound
I
right.
would,
That
it
money-
doesn't pass the gut test to me. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but I
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that money would have to go into the town or a recreational fund for
Unless it's
keeping up
used,
the land.
yeah.
to maintain the
To
trail.
maintain the open, okay.
And I think that's probably where your
Okay.
loopholes are.
I just a
Even
question.
that's speculation. They're
So
good
is-
questions.
So is
So we want to say that
inclusive?
inclusive
Yes,
and
no?
equitable, we were saying no on that? Is that-
I don't think so.
I'm not saying no, I don't think it is, because until it is open to the public as
Right.
opposed to an agreement, it's
Okay.
not.
And equitable?
Same for me, it's not.
So ask if,
I suspect the question of liability would come up there as well.
Right.
Wasn't there something during the presentations at the Congregational Church, someone asked a question about liability, and I recall,
I think if you post, the owners of this land take no responsibility, like you enter this land with the
yeah,
knowledge
there's like a
of,
disclaimer.
right, with the knowledge of, the owners are not.
well, again, I think
Liability.
especially if it's in chapter, I think it was said that there is no liability, because
You
the
take that
purpose of putting it in chapter is for people to use it,
Well,
and therefore,
no, that's not right. About 61, 61B, but 61 is just forest,
mhm.
which,
Well,
and it's not open to the public.
Well, we're also
But
not even
that's-
talking about chapter in this goal.
Right.
No, we're not.
Right, we're,
Just straight opening to the public.
right. Right, I guess that it matters then, because if it's forest, would you want people walking?
The fewer people in our forest, the better.
Right.
It's constant policing. Yeah, I mean, just picking up
Yeah,
trash.
trash.
Yep.
Right,
And
so there's a
hunters
difference.
go in and,
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I don't think that's what
Yeah,
to me, what we're talking about.
okay. Well, that's, okay.
Okay. So we'll leave that one open as well?
Yeah, we just,
This one's, yeah. So do we want, what information do we think we need to find out, though? Is there something we need to,
I think that's going to end up being one of those goals that we come back to visit down the road. It's just not
okay.
going to be at the top of the priority list.
Well, there's a lot of goals here. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're gonna have to
okay.
go back to the low-hanging
Yes.
fruit first.
Okay.
Find the ones with
Well, this is
all
one
yeses.
that, we can maybe,
well, also with the town-owned lands, there are certainly numerous town-owned lands that are open to the public already.
yeah.
Uh,
Right.
A nice variety of them, so whether it's even worth the effort to try to engage landowners. I'm not sure.
Right, would it be better just to try to put more
Yeah.
effort into fixing
Yeah.
public lands already? and
Yeah.
cleaning them
That
up?
would be something as we go around and do a second round and try to apply some of this issue in terms of is the cost effectiveness of trying to
that's
do
right.
some of these. That was, I
Right.
think, your suggestion. That may be one that falls out later on in terms of the time and effort it takes to actually do this. If we do
Right.
have alternatives available
Cost financially and time.
and time-wise, I mean, yeah.
Especially since this was written before the town meeting and the vote for the piece at the end of Edwards there, or whatever. So now
Glendale.
there's
Right.
there's recreational trail hiking opportunities, and an additional one, it's going to be a big one, that's going to be very open to the public, that wasn't even considered when this was written. So,
Right. But the others were, like the Whittemore and Hazel Young and
true.
Berries,
Yeah.
Wolf Hill and so
Yeah.
forth. There are numerous.
Okay, let's keep on moving.
Yes.
1F, encourage land uses in the zoning bylaw that support recreational, historical, and cultural activities.
So maybe part of that, now we're talking about 61B, among other.
I don't even think I understand that, encourage. What does that mean, encourage land uses in the zoning bylaw?
I'm thinking, I take that as, when we can have people put things into 61B or, just make them,
Yeah, but 61 is not in a
It's not a
zoning
zoning bylaw,
bylaw.
though.
that's true.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Guess we would need some zoning help with that.
Yeah.
Are they
And use-
asking to, like, include new clauses in the zoning bylaw that state these things?
It's almost what it sounds like, to write a new bylaw or something.
Oh, yeah.
A new zoning bylaw. Maintain and expand, so your goal is maintain and expand recreational opportunities, right? So
Yeah,
so if our
right.
current zoning bylaws don't allow these things.
Or don't even mention it?
Yeah, I think it's definitely not specific. I think it's trying to say, like, put something in the zoning bylaws that will help.
So the word
Promote.
bylaw should be
Encourage.
plural, zoning bylaws.
Right,
'Cause
to
it's-
encourage recreational and historical activity, like to promote these things.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
Try
I don't think
to
that's
create a culture of considering these things.
Right.
Right,
So,
definitely not specific.
What kind of a bylaw would be written?
I have no idea.
It doesn't make any sense because
Makes no sense.
a bylaw is what, to set up boundaries for something, and this is kind of more like a promotion. We want to promote this. And I
Yeah.
agree with you, Christine, I don't see how that fits in a bylaw.
Yeah, I don't think it makes
You don't.
sense.
And there's other ways to promote this kind of thing, and what was just done with these dinners, for example, was a great promotion, but that's not a, I'm
This might be
missing
more or
something.
less like no's across the board, huh?
One should just be.
well, is there something, I mean, I'm just trying to imagine the situation. I don't know the zoning
I don't either.
system, how it really worked, but if you had something that was zoned,
I think Jim's right though.
zone residential, and you wanted to move it to commercial or vice versa, are they trying to say that, make space in that? Because that would be, well, that's a variance, that's
Yeah,
support. I mean, the zoning
Right.
bylaw, isn't the bylaw in a zoning
bylaw.
thing an exception to the rule, right? I mean,
Right.
you go before the zoning board if you want an exception to whatever the
Right.
the current
And so you could
zoning
grant an
is.
exception if you
Yeah, this is fuzzy.
included recreational, historic, it is, it's very,
Yeah, this is
we're all
definitely-
interpreting it differently, so
Yeah.
to me it means it's certainly not specific.
I think it's not specific, it's
It's not measurable,
pretty
it's not specific.
measurable, we don't know what it means to attain it.
Or if you can't measure it and it's not specific, then how do you know whether you
We
attain
don't know whether it's really relevant, it might be, but.
yeah, that might
we
be
don't know
no's
for sure.
across the board.
No,
Make
it's
Mike
across the
happy,
board.
he'll see some ends there.
I get to
and
use
those
another
are big
key.
ones.
Okay,
We weren't just, we weren't just We're
those.
stamping the Ys here.
Yeah, we got some of those.
Well, it's definitely a,
Okay.
It's an oddly written, it
It's-
needs more
yeah, it's
specifics.
very poorly written in terms of that.
Well, a lot of this
Might have been a
master
good
plan
attempt.
was poorly authored. It wasn't artfully written.
Yeah, anyway. All right, well, let's move on to goal 2. Goal 2, so this one is the overarching goal here. Here we go. Adopt zoning and land use policies to encourage commercial activity in appropriate growth districts identified by, my things scrolled,
Community.
identified by, I
The
scrolled
community.
by the
And let me
community.
get down a little bit.
Yeah, no, I scrolled down too fast too. So adopt
Whoops.
zoning bylaws, so that's the
What
overall one.
happens.
Adopt zoning and land use policies to encourage commercial activity in appropriate growth districts identified by the community. So then the strategy, review and amend the existing table of use and permit certain types of commercial retail businesses that are desired in specific areas of the community. Use the intent statements for each of the zoning districts as a guide. Yozer.
So what's it say?
Table of use and permit certain types of commercial businesses that are
So I don't know what the table of use
Yeah, I
is,
don't know that either.
Yeah.
but I presume that's something to the effect of,
something to the zoning.
you can't have certain businesses in certain areas.
It might just be those zoning districts we talked about.
Yeah.
Well, the
probably
resi-
some
the
of it
residential
with the
village and the
water
residential
table,
whatever, right, all those
yeah.
categories of zoning, right?
So then that's pretty,
I guess I'm just thinking, we also don't have that many commercial areas.
Certain types of
So-
commercial in specific areas.
then we're saying that would be specific.
I think that's a specific goal strategy.
So, yeah, is it saying that basically we take the existing definitions of what, let's see, something zoned business versus something that's zoned residential versus something that's zoned rural, and reconsider drawing the maps based on the desires of the town? Is that essentially what it's saying?
I think
That rethink
Yeah,
what's,
it's talking about amending the table.
In
It's amending
appropriate
it.
growth districts identified by the community.
So
I
there
think
may
it's
have
a
been,
combination of, for just blunt reasons, rezoning things commercial and also,
Industrial, and then there's mixed use, and
And I
based on the
right.
charts,
right?
is that the latest? I doubt it. I think the zoning board's probably done things since then.
Right, I think it's probably
should probably
rezoning
get that.
property to non-residential use, and then also within what we have now as commercial,
right,
there might be certain types of businesses that, even though they are commercial, can't be there for whatever reason.
or simply expanding that commercial district.
Right.
The line is here, and
yeah.
if it makes
Remember there,
sense.
in the beginning, in the overall summary of the report, of the plan, was there not a map in there that identified the commercial
Yeah, it's not
ideas for
wrong.
growth?
Yes.
Ideas for growth and
Right, it's
future
not
development, so
much.
maybe that's what they're kind of referring to here?
It'd be helpful to have in front of us the table of use so we know what's on
Right.
that table.
Yeah. So we need to find somebody from the zoning board to help us out with this maybe a little bit.
Well, Cindy, she would be the, oh,
Yes.
no,
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 she's
she's
on planning.
That's
She's on
right.
planning.
We don't have anyone
Why
from zoning.
why don't we have someone from zoning?
I don't know. It's not one of the required, we went by the list that was
Yeah.
in 27.
I wonder why that turns out.
And tried to look up minutes from zoning board, on the town website. And I can't ever find any.
Yeah, I had looked at one.
There aren't any ever posted unless they're posted somewhere else. I'm just not seeing them.
So this one, I think we don't, well, we think it's specific, we don't know much more than that. It could be measurable, I would think, if we knew what we were doing, right? Review and
Well, even that is, I don't know if it's measurable, because it's not, it might be implying, or maybe it's not, that, expand the commercial district, but it's not really saying that. So I don't know what's measurable. It's not measurable to me.
Well, one thing would be, you know,
But I
if
mean,
it happened on one occasion.
But they're talking about reviewing and amending the
Right, but
existing,
what-
so if you did an amendment, it would be measurable. If you
Yes.
amended something,
Yes.
so,
I guess it's what you're measuring. You know, what is the goal of this? Review and amend existing tenants
I
for
think they're
certain
implying-
types of commercial retail
Businesses
businesses that are
coming to the
desired.
right.
I don't know
So
what
it's
that
allowing
means.
certain kinds of businesses to come to that part of town that had not been previously thought about, but I don't remember this being that specific in the plan about what kind of businesses.
So
Would be
I
located.
have a
Right, that's
use
why I think it's-
regulations table that are in the zoning bylaws as of a year and a half ago. Residential, retail and service. I don't know what this code system is though. But they have, retail and service broken down into 16 different things, and then they have a whole different section for wholesale, transportation, industrial. I mean, they have it broken down into retail establishments selling general merchandise, eating and drinking places, including drive-in establishments, establishments selling motor vehicles and accessories, hotels and motels.
Yeah.
A lodging house is different. Retail establishment selling principally convenience goods, subsection maximum floor areas. I mean,
Yeah, so
all.
to me, this is way too broad. It doesn't really say what its intent is. Because remember, we haven't even decided as a town, like many towns, whether we have a different commercial rate versus
We don't.
residential, and we don't right
We don't right
So
now, yeah.
what's the motive to expand the business? You generate employment perhaps in town, which can be a good thing when people have transportation challenges.
Or make it convenient for people who live here
Uh-huh.
to have
If it's-
access to more services.
Right, if it's a retail operation versus a manufacturer.
But it
yeah.
probably wouldn't do anything to increase the tax base, really, no.
No.
So again, I don't know what the goal of this is, and I don't know.
So I took the Y out until
Yeah.
Jerry's.
Oh, okay, so each one of these, they have a column of principal uses, and then they have them separated into residential, commercial, industrial. And for each part, there's different codes of whether it's allowed, not allowed, special permit is needed, special permit plus the Board of Selectmen have to approve it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Special permit just from the planning board. There's like all kinds of.
Well, then,
So I don't know, they clearly want to do something and go through. I mean, that's definitely something for the zoning board to.
So, I mean,
Dive
the way
into.
the way the goal itself is written, the writer assumed that whatever exists right now is discouraging commercial activity.
Or certain types of commercial activity that people want, but can't
or
have
in
because
places
it's not
where
allowed
it's
there.
wanted.
Or in places where it's
Right,
wanted. but-
Right.
Wouldn't that mean the establishment of a new bylaw? What does permit? What constitutes permit certain types of?
Well, I think it's like this.
Permit certain
This thing
types
is
of
just, no matter what it is, residential stuff or different retail services, you have to have, like, it's not allowed in residential areas, not allowed in industrial areas, but you can get a permit for it normally in a commercial zone, or you have to have a special permit. And I think that, I don't know if we'd have to rewrite bylaws to change
Right,
those
but isn't
things, but.
that's somewhat in place, that if, like, I live in residential rural and I have a special permit to have my business there.
Right.
So that allows for that already.
But, I mean, they just passed a new zoning bylaw covering marijuana, recreational marijuana establishments. Is that, it seems to fit in here when it says permit certain types of commercial. That to me is a certain type of commercial retail.
Right,
I mean, is that what they were thinking? I'm trying to figure this out.
I think so. I think maybe they were looking at it at this point and saying, you know, like you're saying, that got passed, and that was something that was really just brought to us as a decision to be made as town, and they might have been thinking of it as more a permanent change to, or more permanent generalization in the zoning bylaw in this chart. So we wouldn't have to go through all the process of it every time.
But it doesn't suggest developing new bylaws in that strategy.
Right, I think it's just
I think, yeah.
updating this
But the
table.
table of use.
The table of use
Like,
is-
whatever that entails, I don't know what it would take to do that, if you could just change it
Policies to
willy-nilly.
Yeah.
I want to remind us that it feels to me like, I remember when we were reviewing the master plan, sometimes we had to remind ourselves, we kind of got bogged down
Yeah.
in recreating the master plan
Yeah.
ourselves, and
Yeah,
that's
we're
not our
not.
role.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I feel the discussion here and how diverse it is, as far as not being able to really figure out what this means, to me says this is ends all across,
Yeah.
because it doesn't, there's not,
So we
it's not
can't make
specific, it's
heads
not,
or tails
it doesn't
of it.
mean the intent wasn't good. If we knew more about it, maybe someone could take that ball and run with it, but we're just speculating here and spinning the
Okay, I'm
wheels.
going with it.
Yeah, and I think it actually, as we keep on going with that, Francine, but as we jump down to 2B, these almost like, what do you want to say? They're kind of duplicative, or something like that. So this one is development intent, I'm not even sure this is English. Development intent or purpose statements for all zoning districts to integrate land policies with district delineations. Developing the district intent statements will assist in the amendments to the table of uses.
And
So it's like,
above it says
it's-
intent statements for each zoning district.
yeah, so I mean, the two are, they're,
Yeah.
it's almost the two of them are sort of referring to the same thing, but they're using gobbledygook language
So,
here.
22C is a little more straightforward and makes more sense to me. That's because it's just a little more straightforward of
That's, yeah,
a strategy.
that one
like,
is much more specific. but-
we want to consider moving the industrial zoning district that we have now to somewhere that would be easier to put an infrastructure in.
Yeah. Versus B is, I
B
guess.
is really helping A.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the two of them are kind of, it's like,
I think they are.
One
We're
big
back to
thing where they
speculation,
kind of
because
try to divide it
it
in two,
implies,
which-
is there a problem with the purpose statements as they presently stand? I don't
So
know,
there
we
must be
figured out the marijuana bylaws with those
well, they were,
purpose
I can't
statements.
imagine that 8 or 10 years ago, they were even thinking about marijuana bylaws. You're
No,
giving
I
them too
don't.
But
much
nonetheless,
info.
it was
I mean-
applied to those standards, and people read the intents and were able to figure
I
it
mean,
out.
that's the only new thing I know that's come up
Yeah.
Yeah.
in terms of retail use specific.
And who knows, this table that I was looking at, that might have not even existed 10 years ago. I mean, maybe that's much more detailed of a definition
Yeah,
of what you
could
can
be
and
too.
can't do than,
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah,
something
well,
has been
There are-
developed. Yeah.
That may be true,
That
but
may
there
be.
always has been
Something.
some table
Right.
that,
Yeah.
it might have been a much more broad,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, when you look back at 2B, the thing that gets me though is that they're talking about integrating land policies with district delineations. So
right, what is that?
what's the land policy versus a
think-
district delineation?
I
You've got,
think A and B
They
are.
sound the same to me.
I think we have to nix all these because we just don't understand
Okay.
it. It's not worth spending time on. I agree. Let's just jump down to C. This one is very specific, I think. Consider eliminating the existing industrial zoning district and relocating to an area that has the potential for town sewer infrastructure.
Sure.
Very specific, measurable.
do we just have one industrial district
I thought we
now?
only had one, which is
It's
the
on the
south
west.
end of town.
So what
Where
is
would you put it?
more conducive to having town sewer infrastructure?
That's about as close to Westfield as you can
North.
get.
Exactly, yeah.
Or Easthampton, those are our.
So that has,
That's
that has no town sewer down there now, right, for Westfield?
And I don't know if Westfield does. either.
Westfield has.
Westfield does, but I mean, this,
At
our
that part of town?
Yeah, I think so.
So Westfield sewer
I
runs
think,
right
I think 7Bs is on
up?
sewer.
7Bs, then Cumbies, all that.
I think so.
well, they probably are, but up to
But-
G&E, aren't they?
But there supposedly there was some thought out there that you could do like a partial, like a sewer system in a part of the town for Southampton.
Doesn't it have to connect with an existing
That I-
sewer system?
I-
Without, you have to
I mean,
develop
that's
a
what it is
plan.
now. I don't know the answer to that, but it wasn't that we would have to do the whole town sewer infrastructure. We could do certain sections.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
And we don't have that now to encourage more commercial
Right.
development.
Sections geographically located next to existing,
That's right,
so
yeah.
that's why we're talking about
Okay.
the border, either Westfield
Well, then-
or East Hampton.
Because the
And that's where it
sewer-
exists
Or Holyoke.
already, though.
Right.
Or Holyoke.
Well, but
So where would it be relocated, where it would be?
Well, how about where, what is it, Marmon?
Marvin Keystone.
Marvin Keystone.
That's the center of town.
Right, so how did that ever get zoned industrial? What's their sewer capacity? They're probably not producing much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're not producing a lot of industrial waste.
Well, certain things don't
apparently,
need,
because-
the real industrial waste facility, I would imagine.
Right.
But I
It's
mean,
been grandfathered in.
are we confusing the commercial versus industrial? Isn't the only industrial thing J&E? Am I
Yes,
wrong on
outside
that?
of town.
Isn't that the
Where
only industrial part?
Where the church is going.
Because commercial is Easthampton, that's not industrial, is it?
Where that new church
It
is
should
going, that's
be.
industrial
Oh,
property.
you're right.
Across, yeah.
So Marmon Keystone's not industrial.
I don't believe
No,
so.
commercial,
It's
I
commercial,
think.
but I don't think it's industrial.
And
But
there
what they're
should
saying
be
here
a
is
map
consider
here.
eliminating the
There is a
existing
map.
industrial district. How could you possibly do that?
And
And
relocating.
relocating it?
I mean,
I mean,
To an area that has the potential, that is the area where it has the potential.
That's what
Right.
it seems. Now, it wasn't too long ago that I think it was a part of the Kanicki Farm, which was zoned industrial, was removed from industrial zoning, and it was put back into residential or agricultural, or, yeah. So our zoning district has been reduced in the size some, and that happened not too terribly long ago.
I know I have a picture of
Yeah, this is in
but
the
here's, eliminating it and relocating it. I mean, that just,
to
Well,
do
I
that to
haven't read
private
the page.
industry is, I don't understand. how they
so I mean,
could have that.
it's very specific. I
Yes.
don't think it's attainable.
Right, you could say it's specific and measurable, but it's not
It's
attainable.
not attainable.
Or you certainly say it's not
it.
relevant,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Slightly different maybe.
Well, mine
It
is
might
just
be
that mine
attainable.
isn't colored.
But it's not
But you see,
relevant.
there's this
I'm not sure
purple.
I mean,
Those are the
relate to
two
that industry. How would you
industrial
have them
zones.
relocate to
Industrial
what?
park.
So that
Well,
must
not so
be
much the
Marvin
industry,
Keystone.
That
but
must
instead of
be
limiting the
Marvin.
existing industrial zoning district. You're right, you'd have to move the business. Right, it's not
I think it's
attainable,
attainable at all.
and it's certainly
Yeah, I
not
don't see how that
relevant.
would
What are you
work.
looking at, Kristen?
So this is
map.
the zoning map right now. The purple is the industrial.
Right, okay.
So
And
that
so
must be
Marvin-
Marvin Keystone.
Oh, there is one right in the center there, okay.
I thought
You're
so.
right, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, they don't have sewer.
Can't, where would it go?
But it's not, it
Open in the
doesn't
mail.
necessarily
They don't need it.
mean that they
No.
need, maybe they don't need
Right.
it. What do they even do there?
I honestly don't know.
I don't know.
What is the new? Oh, that's Easthampton. Never mind. Never mind. That's Easthampton.
But the new,
The gun place. Right
Yeah.
past Big Y.
Yeah.
So in other words, that zone could be moved because it's completely impractical to put infrastructure there.
By Connor Park, you mean?
Yeah. So maybe, are they referring to moving that industrial zone to the borders? I don't know.
Maybe.
It
I
doesn't.
mean, would you have to, instead of moving the zone, create the zone and see if anybody comes there? I mean, I can't see
I don't see why you have to
moving
move it.
existing businesses to some other
But this is what we're
location.
talking about.
But
you know.
eliminating and relocating
I know,
suggests
that doesn't
moving.
make- yeah.
Right, and there must be, are there not certain industrial activities that don't have to have a town sewer infrastructure, right? I mean,
Oh,
there-
yeah,
I would think, so I mean, it's like you're putting the two things together, assuming that if it's industrial, it has to have
I
town
mean,
sewer, and it
not all
may,
factory work has to.
right, it may not have to at all.
So what
So I
you're
mean,
making, and-
Well, and why would you eliminate the existing industrial?
or how could you, even? So that's where
Well, that
that,
becomes the other thing,
you
yeah.
know.
Well, you could, when Marmon goes out of business, you could
Correct.
close
Yes.
that down.
Well, yeah,
Right,
but
Right.
but you could eliminate it, I don't know that you could.
in
I
Why
don't know
would you
what-
want to
why would
if
you want
another
to?
business
right,
could
you
go
try to
in
get
there?
another
right,
tenant rather than an empty building.
so, yeah, I don't know.
But then would it be their right to sell the building? I mean, because look at the loss to them
Yeah,
if we change
Right.
Yeah.
the zoning on it.
I think this is
I don't,
not
I
attainable,
don't think it's
not
attainable or
relevant.
relevant. I don't
Okay.
see it myself.
I don't think it's relevant anymore. I mean,
If
So
was,
is
I
it
don't know.
attainable?
who
No.
knows? This
I don't think
piece,
so.
the piece that's down on the south side, maybe, well, no, it would have been. This is the old master plan. I was thinking
'Cause-
that might not have been an industrial zone, but it must have been.
But is there a possibility, maybe if the sewer system from Westfield goes as far as JP's, doesn't, maybe the potential is to extend,
JP's.
JD.
I mean, sorry,
Oh.
JB's.
Oh, I was like.
Sorry about that. The purple onion.
Right, right.
Call it the purple onion, the old purple onion.
Yes.
To go that far, it might be able to come up.
70s.
That's what.
Oh, yeah, no,
Sorry, that's what I meant.
there have been, there
Gotcha.
were
Sorry,
talks.
that's what I meant.
Someone was talking about, there were talks
Not JP's,
know,
7B's.
a
I'm sorry.
decade or so ago apparently about that.
Yeah. that's what I was
And,
thinking.
vice versa, coming from Easthampton.
Yeah.
As far as, possible. I mean, we just don't really need it there
Yeah.
yet until we really commit to coming past the
Yeah.
bowling alley and
Yeah.
up towards Cumbies area, but
Right.
there were talks, I guess, that just kind of broke down and
Yeah,
never
whether-
really continued with Westfield about continuing it to that location,
27B's.
to the industrial, to our
Yeah,
industrial.
our industrial, yeah. That's right, yeah. I keep confusing all the initials around here. JP's, 7B's.
And now it's all
Right, the purple onion.
solar fields.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's further south. That's the,
And as far as the sewer line coming in from Easthampton, I think all the businesses who are hooked into that have paid privately
Yeah.
to be hooked in.
I think it
I believe
stops at
that's true.
Paul's, at the car wash. I think the car wash is
The
last.
car wash did pull it in.
yeah.
I think that's the last, it's on the line.
Is Pure Food in there?
I
No.
don't think so.
All right. So, I don't know, relevant,
I don't think so.
I don't particularly think so, but I'm willing to hear anybody else's craziness, time-bound item.
Well, I guess it could be time-bound. Just because it's irrelevant doesn't mean it's not time.
Well, but I mean, if that's what Christine says, if you had to wait till somebody went out of business, unless you're really somehow thinking you can relocate a business, an industry, which I
Yeah,
I
so
don't-
how could that be time-bound? That's
Certainly
right.
not
I don't
inclusive
see
or
that.
equitable.
I don't think so. I don't like this one either.
You've got
Not too
lowercase
excited about
there.
these guys.
Yeah, I see that.
It's okay.
Go back.
If it looks like an N rather than a Y, we'll take it, no matter how big it is. Alrighty. Goodness, these are
What the
toughies.
heck?
Got your caps on? All right.
It's just
2E, consider adopting standards for mixed-use developments to allow different uses in one building, such as retail on the first floor and residential on the second. Okay, that I think.
Wait,
Yeah,
where,
so
I'm not
you want-
following
2E,
you.
2E, sorry. I just read.
Oh, we need to do D,
Oh, I'm sorry.
right?
D.
D.
I mean, I do think
Oh, I missed it,
they
I'm sorry.
somewhat
I'm sorry. I missed it.
coincide.
Adopting a
Yes.
mixed-use overlay district to encourage a mix of residential, commercial uses in appropriate locations. Yeah.
And that's what they consider that section of College Highway, right? Is a mixed use? Where
Across
they have
from
those
where-
condominiums and they
Paisanos and the
have
condos.
paisanos and all,
Yeah.
I mean, it's all
Yep.
Well, and
car
also,
repair place.
and then kind of right across from the old OPO, but across from JP's now, right? Where there's the
Yes.
chiropractic and there's some apartments up
Right.
above, right?
Right.
Where the, right at the corner of Palmer Meadow, and so
Mhm.
that I would
Well, there are
assume is mixed use.
apartments above. I didn't know that, okay. That's
I mean, it's
classic mixed use, I mean,
Right,
I
it's
think within a
definitely
building.
Easthampton.
Yeah, any
Apartments
any
everywhere.
downtown
Businesses.
has,
Yeah,
we just don't have a big enough downtown.
so I think
Yeah.
I
that's,
think both of these strategies are relevant.
yeah. They're specific, I think, aren't they? Measurable, yeah.
I mean,
They're
I think
attainable,
if
see,
someone
why
is
not?
willing to move into the area as a business,
Mhm.
and built a building and
Well, but I mean, that whole
put up
area
3
there.
apartments to help subsidize their
Yeah,
costs.
I mean, several vacancies
Well,
right in those buildings right now.
Right.
Relevant, time-bound, well, time-bound is crazy.
Yeah, time-bound.
But it could be inclusive and it could be equitable,
Sure.
I would think. 2D,
Mhm.
so leave the time-bound, but maybe forget the time-bound, Francie. I don't know, what is,
Yeah, blank on the time bound.
No?
Yeah, just a
Just
blank.
blank.
Don't
because
know
it's
that.
consider, it's not a, whatever. Okay. Then 2E, adopt standards for the developments.
for in-building.
But this implies
The first one
that
was
the
just
first one
having.
doesn't
It doesn't
exist.
exist, I was just gonna say.
No,
do
I
we-
think the first one allows for an overlay district, and then the second
Right.
one says, how do you want that district to look? Or what are the specifics of that overlay district?
Oh, I took it as the first one is a district to establish you could have, almost like we have,
Yeah.
business here, residential, business, residential. And then the next one is actually having like businesses with residential above them
And you're
in
saying
the
we
same
have that.
building.
If that place across from JP's
I think-
is residential on the second floor and
So
commercial on
maybe
the
the
first.
question was that grandfathered in, and we don't have that now.
Well, that's true
Right.
too.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. I
Yeah.
mean,
And other than that, I can't think of another place in town, other than that little kitty corner there by Palmer Meadow, that has
How about
business
over,
down.
like, the ponds area? Is there any such,
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Like up above, I don't think so.
Well,
Or just
no,
in
I'm
between.
thinking actually
Residential.
more, yeah, I don't
I'm
know.
thinking of where the plaza is, even though it's technically Westfield, but I'm thinking they have the plaza and then,
The Hampton Plaza, you mean?
yeah.
By the-
I mean, I guess there is residential before you get to.
Can't think of anything over there, but I haven't circulated around that part of town enough
my God,
to know.
so many more of these.
No, we're just beginning here. So anyway, so 2E, I think,
I think it's the same as the one above it.
yeah, I think that seems to be, it certainly would be inclusive and more equitable if we could have mixed-use buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Might be more affordable to some people that want to stay in town.
Right.
Right, that's,
Don't need a large
from
space.
affordable housing standpoint. you know,
Could be a
you-
very
You
attractive
could put affordable
strategy.
units on top of a retail,
Mhm.
and make,
Yeah,
once you start stacking a little bit, you can
You have more
make something more affordable, because you're not
Sure.
giving up so much land to
right.
produce revenue.
So we kind of like.
But is that, it, let's see, does that mean expanding the commercial district? Consider adopting standards. No.
No.
Is it not true that that already can take place if there's a business on the first floor? In a commercial area, can residents be,
I don't know.
residences?
I don't know.
I think it's like what Jim was saying, I don't know if, like
It's kind of
the
a
old
line.
bike shop there across from Subway, I don't know if that was grandfathered in, that wasn't actually, that's not technically allowed.
It kind of implies that it's not allowed, but it's a good question. I don't know, maybe it is, and this is
Right,
redundant.
maybe that's happened since this, maybe those changes have been made since.
Well, that whole area, there used to be a whole lot more things in there. I mean, there was the insurance company in there forever.
Right.
Dumont Dowd was in there forever. There was,
Was there always
Is there-
apartments in there though?
A
Or were those-
residential component?
Or were those offices of people? Like, are those supposed to be apartments?
I don't know.
I didn't even know there were apartments up. Oh, yes, because they look out to the back.
yeah,
They-
I think they do. They look
Because I
like,
think there's also an apartment or two downstairs, like in the basement.
oh, yeah.
Really?
I don't know
Oh, I
about
bet
that.
that's not legal.
Probably not.
Not sure about that, but I guess I thought they were apartments. But you have a point. They might have been an office for somebody, but I don't think, the kind of businesses that have been there, I wouldn't think so. There'd been a fabric shop there was the bike shop, there's a chiropractic place, there was an insurance place.
I don't know.
I don't think any of them had any kind of office.
But I think the intent here is to promote that kind of
Yeah.
development. To make it clear that in
Right.
this overlay district,
Right.
you can do both.
Because again, going back to the goal, right, it's to encourage commercial activity in appropriate areas of town that we want to see commercial activity in. So,
So that's rezoning commercial then, is
Right,
what
so
you're
that's-
suggesting, to
yes, well,
change the bylaws?
Well,
They're describing it as an overlay district, so
Yeah,
it's very
it's-
specific. So you wouldn't, an overlay district would bound that kind of activity, so you wouldn't have out in a rural area someone who decides, I'm going to open a car repair shop in my 3-bay garage. It's not zone business, it's not zone commercial.
So you then get a special permit?
You would have to get a special permit, where in the overlay district, that would be encouraged. But of course, since it's not rural, you wouldn't have someone's house with a three, it'd be tighter, densely developed. So it's encouraged to have that kind of mixture. Does that make sense?
And the other place there might be apartments is that Park Place, where they have doctors, dentists, and
Yeah.
the quilt shop on the second floor there.
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm thinking that there might be.
Well, anyway, I think the idea of having a mixed-use development that allows for both retail and residential makes a certain amount of sense, and certainly would be
It gives you
both bringing
flexibility.
in commercial activity, but also maybe making some affordable housing available to people.
Right.
But we don't know whether that means expanding the commercial district or whether that already isn't allowed. I mean, you're assuming that housing isn't allowed to be mixed in
Right.
with commercial.
Right, I
Already.
think this is something we gotta find out if it's.
Yeah.
this
This certainly implies that it's not, and hence the need for a mixed overlay district.
To encourage commercial.
But when this was written, and maybe since then,
Well, where in town is a commercial area where there isn't a mix of residential?
but there is not.
Yeah.
I
Along
guess
the
what you
college
define
highway.
as a mix, because like within a building,
Yeah, but that's separate.
Right.
That's another strategy down here.
We're referring just to the district. Within the district at the edge of at the border of Easthampton, there are houses intermixed there.
So I guess I'm looking at this zoning map that we were looking at a second ago, all the colors. And in the middle of town here are some of the commercial districts that we have, and the yellow is the residential.
Is there any mixed use
But
on
is
that?
it?
I can't read
It
it.
doesn't say
the
a
key doesn't
specific
have any
mix.
mixed.
So I don't know if these are considered just individual commercial zones within this,
The
or it's
red,
actually.
the red is the commercial.
or it's-
Commercial village
and
would be
commercial highway.
mixed, would it not? Commercial village?
I think they probably mean that as just like a commercial zone
location.
within the village. Like this bright yellow is the residential village. So I don't know if they're just considering it as like the
Yeah.
commercial in the village area,
We're making
or it's
assumptions.
actually like
Yeah, but
an
that's
overlay.
residential as well. I mean, if you think about immediate downtown, we're
Right.
like just out here, we're in it.
Right.
There are plenty of residences along with
Yeah.
the commercial
When your commercial would be
buildings.
what, Robert
But see
Floyd?
how small
Floyd,
these
and then their apartments
commercial.
upstairs.
Right.
But see how small the commercial districts are?
Right.
They're like almost around, like this block of town
Right. Yeah.
hall and stuff. So I don't know if they consider it
Expanding it.
as an actual mixture on top of each other, or this is a specific island of commercial within residential world. And I think that's what they want. They want to have an area designated as
And
whatever you want.
And if you
Residential or
read,
commercial, you can build whatever you want.
if you read TUI very specifically, it says consider adopting standards. So
maybe it exists, but
maybe it exists, but it's kind of a free-for-all. You can have a house here, a business there, you can have an apartment on top of a business, but, to the, what size apartments,
That's right. it
Yeah,
is
maybe
saying
it's a standard
standards.
issue. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
whether it's a one-bedroom, two-bedroom, whatever it might be there. Because I think we do have certain places that
right, so
have
maybe
residential
it's-
on the second floor
we
and
can
retail on the
have
first floor.
businesses,
But maybe
but-
it's just kind of,
right.
Right, it's not knowing the specifics. If
Unregulated,
I
should I
wanted
say.
to,
yeah.
I was
So,
a developer and I wanted to tear out all those condos that's next to Paisano, so I wanted to put in a new development that was both retail on the first floor and multiple floors, 2, 3 floors on top of the residential. Could I just do it as the current overlay district is, or commercial district is designed? Or is it lacking the specifics enough
Yeah,
that no
it's-
developer could do that?
it sounds like we have to adopt a new district. It sounds like we don't have anything that is formally a mixed-use overlay district, so I think we have to.
Officially.
Well, we are
Officially,
making
but-
assumptions, though.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, on a lot of these, we are making judgments based on lack of, I mean, we don't know. We
Lack of
don't know
information.
what.
I'm kind of thinking this goes back to what we were talking about before, where the intent might be good, and we're implying some intent, but the reality is, as written, maybe these should be
What
ends
was.
because they're not specific enough.
I was gonna say, so maybe that goes back to maybe the majority of the strategies we've gone over are actually not specific. If we're actually putting our own
Right, if they're,
spin
yeah.
on things.
I mean, we're
Don't
looking at
actually
it with
know
some
what they want.
specificity because we're reading the statement, but in reality, is,
It-
Well,
In a way, it would seem as though we need a PVPC translator here, but, you know, the one who authored this is not there
Doesn't
any
exist.
longer, but,
yeah.
I think this is, looks to me like it might be pretty boilerplate for
well, I
towns
suspect
that
it
they-
is.
Yeah.
I
It does,
suspect.
kind of, but it is an assumption. I guess for me, I wonder if the ends don't necessarily mean a bad thing. They show some intent, but maybe it's, the ends is what we work on next after the whys to say, okay, let's look at these ends. What do they really mean, and how do we make them more specific so they're measurable, attainable, blah, blah, blah. It's not like we're dismissing them forever.
If we think it's even a good strategy, even if it's
Right,
worth it.
but I believe we shouldn't, because it's an end, it's gone, we're never gonna think about it again.
No.
Come back and
We
look
have
at
to
it,
check.
but
No, we're. I
But
think
this is
we-
like a first pass,
Yeah.
right? And what can we start on right now? And if we have these kind of questions, to me, if we have this level of questions and uncertainty, I'm kind of an end guy. We'll come,
Yeah.
we'll come back and look at it later, because we're gonna have plenty of whys.
Right.
But I think if, I'll just plain devil's advocate, I think if we did have the mixed-use developments
Yep,
and an overlay district of sorts, that would certainly be inclusive and equitable.
yep.
So, I mean, those are wise for me, but it's, again, it's the time-bound one that gets us mixed up. But you guys are saying that you don't think it's specific enough. Is that what you were saying, George?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, you're saying.
Just one
I think
person.
a lot of, I mean, especially 2F, the next one is absurd to me.
Really? So how are we finishing off E? Time-bound, inclusive, equitable.
I think it would be inclusive and equitable myself.
I would give it I would give it yeses. You know, I think we might just have to come back to
Would
it.
you give the measurable and attainable and relevant yeses? Given what we don't
Well, I think
know?
it's relevant
I think
to
it's
the
relevant.
goal, and I think it is attainable.
What is
This-
measurable about it?
I mean,
Again, I
consider,
come
right.
back to
I think the
if
first
we're
two
able
could be
to-
no's because there needs to be more specifics on what it will look like.
What is it?
And thus, it might not be
So
measurable until
like,
we
I'm
realize
going
what
to change
needs to be
measurable
done.
to no.
Yeah, probably the first two would be no's for
Yeah.
me.
I get it.
Okay.
But it's probably, it is
But if it's not,
relevant.
if it's not specific,
it's
how can it
relevant.
be attainable? If it's not specific, how can we even say that it's attainable if we don't know that it's specific?
As it's presently written, I would agree with that. If it's not specific and measurable, it's not attainable. You make it specific and measurable, it's attainable.
We're still talking about 2E.
Yes.
Okay.
I do agree it can be relevant, because it is
Yeah.
relevant.
It can be attainable, it can be inclusive, it can be equitable.
So I guess we're going no with attainable.
I would go no
As
with
written,
attainable.
as written.
Because if it's not specific and measurable, it's not attainable. It's only attainable until you get the specifics. Then we'll know whether it's attainable or not.
And it's pretty
So
much-
maybe leave that blank.
Okay.
See, I think
We're getting bogged down.
from meeting to meeting, we're using different criteria for what's an and versus blank. It sounds like I wasn't here last time.
Well, the time bounds were
The
left
time bound was
blank
kinda
as
left open.
opposed to putting in.
I wouldn't mind leaving that.
I don't know.
I wouldn't mind leaving that
Attainable, is
open.
it feasible? Do we have control or influence over the outcome? We don't, I guess, if it's not specific, we don't know if it's feasible.
Right.
You know, we don't know what it is.
So,
Right, those first two are really important,
Well, the
specific and
specific-
measurable, because it drives everything else.
I mean, the specificity is to establish the mixed-use overlay district. That's the specific part of it. What we don't know is how that is considered now in whatever our zoning
Right.
bylaws are.
But it's not really, it's adopting standards, not adopting a mixed-use development. It's adopting standards for a mixed-use development.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first is, 2D is to establish the district, right? Adopt the district.
Yes.
and then the standards for that.
Oh, okay.
In
2D, okay, I
Yeah.
don't see 2D up here
Yeah.
anymore, that's why
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
confused.
Yes. So 2E, I'm sorry.
You want me to go up a little bit?
Would you, please?
So I think we just have to check on it, because I'm thinking that 2D might exist already. I think the mixed-use district might exist.
If not, we've got certain places in town that are,
And
That are-
and
are-
maybe
They could have been
Questioning as if they
grandfathered,
are-
though.
as if
could have
they
been
exist.
Right, they could
grandfathered.
have.
yeah. Okay.
Because
But
all
doesn't
those
that
ones,
stand for something? I mean, going forward, you have something to point to as a precedent. It has to,
One would think, yeah.
yeah, it has to have something.
Okay. All right, so where are we on 2E? What are we agreeing on or disagreeing on? Attainable or
I
leaving it alone?
I mean, if we're taking it as written, I think it's a no, because we don't know what standards we're striving for. Is it something that's not attainable, something just wildly absurd, or is it just looking for standards of, is it going to be an affordable housing unit, or is it going to be a certain size or bedroom, or are we really going to say, oh, it's got to be a luxury line of
Yeah.
condos,
right.
or...
What's the purpose of adopting the standards? That will tell you, you know.
So I guess I'd leave it unknown right now, because we don't
How
know
about everybody
what
else?
it's going to be.
All right, let's leave it unknown and we'll move on.
Yeah.
So we have three choices, yes, no, or blank.
Let's leave it blank.
Blank.
Blank?
Thank you, say.
All
Because
right.
if it can be made specific and measurable, then it will be
Then it could be
attainable.
attainable. Right. All right, let's move on to 2F and get through this little piece of the goal. The Design Review Board and adopt design standards
For what?
This is my
that will
favorite one so far.
prescribe special design standards. Boy, this is double talk. I just say no all across the board here. This doesn't even.
It's the most absurd thing I've ever read.
Establish a design review board, adopt design standards that will prescribe design standards.
To what?
To be
Just-
applied to a
to-
designated
To this,
area.
to this mixed use that doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, I just,
But
That's-
I
that's
fast
not
10
even-
times.
I don't even think it's talking about the mixed use. I don't even know what it's talking about.
yeah.
Well, it's
So-
right there, so you think it
We're
would be.
saying no or we say blank?
I think it's no. I don't even think it's relevant to anything. Establish a design review board and adopt design standards that will prescribe special design standards to be applied to
doesn't-
a designated area.
Yeah.
It's kind of combining
Like,
two,
I don't know what that means.
you know,
I mean-
D and E above it.
Yeah.
It's basically saying, as I see it, establish a review board for D and E.
That's what it implies, but it doesn't say for
It doesn't
mixed
even
use.
say that. Like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I think it's not
So
specific
since we're
enough,
not
and it's-
sure,
yeah,
it is
I-
no.
I'd put no.
I would think that, I mean, it certainly seems relevant, it seems related to me, to the two prior ones, but
Right, I'm sure they probably meant something, have a committee, make sure that a builder's design is meeting
meet
what
certain
it's supposed
standards,
to.
right?
At some
And they
point
should.
In relation to something.
But in what way? Aesthetically?
Who knows?
No, I'm thinking,
Square footage.
like health, safety,
Code-wise.
those
Yeah.
kinds of minimal standards.
But you talk, your point is a good one though, aesthetically, some towns limit the
Right.
degree of writing or colored commercial advertising, to make, especially an older town, remain
Sure.
historic looking.
Right.
You see it down the Cape all over the place, right? The Dunkin' Donuts in Haydenville, Massachusetts is the latest example, they.
Oh, yeah,
they
I
didn't-
know, I've been
They
there.
didn't want that Dunkin' Donuts. They allowed it, and, there's no bright orange and pink signage.
Right?
And so it fit in with the character
It
of
looks
the
like a
town.
cape.
So
The
you
design,
could, you could have an overlay district that's a business district that very much has those kind of design limits or constraints.
Yeah,
for-
good idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I know that signage was talked about in the original master plan meetings where design
Well,
standards for signs, but I bet that comes up elsewhere.
Might come up later on too.
Then do you want to look back at that, our answers? Because this puts some context to this statement that I don't think I was considering. We were just talking about this design standards. Do you know what
But
I'm
it
saying?
doesn't specify
It doesn't,
signage there.
yeah,
And
no.
I just am remembering back to Jessica talking about the possibility of putting some design sign design standards to keep it within a character of the rural community.
Right, adopting standards can be so many things.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, how do we
Okay.
want to do 2F though? Do we think it's?
I mean, I think itself as a strategy is just, I don't even know what it,
Yeah, it doesn't mean
We're
anything.
putting no across the board on F right now. Okay, let's see if we can get through goal 2, 3. There's only about 3 or 4 of these. Let's see if we can get through one more tonight before we all fade away.
Good.
Our time is moving on here.
Okay.
Let's see if we can do this next one. Let me see.
Yes, it's almost.
Okay, so we're still under the goal, same goal are we here now?
Yeah, I don't know why this is
New goal.
crossed
I
out.
don't know why it is either.
It says appoint a single point of contact to work with applicants and be responsible for coordinating the applicant's efforts to apply for necessary.
so we have a new
permits.
overarching goal. Establish a streamlined and transparent permitting process to improve communication with permit applicants.
So that's the goal, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so
Yeah.
a facilitator is
Yeah.
what that is.
Right. So single point of contact to work with applicants. Okay, do we not have that already?
Maybe at the time of writing, we didn't, but I think we do now.
Do we have
I'm
a
thinking
contact?
the building inspector's
That's what I'm
office.
thinking too. If this isn't the building inspector, who is assigned to this?
But that would always be true of the building inspector, not just this one.
Right.
Right, but I'm saying it may have, well, I don't know, did we
Or is
share
this
a
for
building
all-
inspector
or is this
before? We
all
always had
permits
our
in
own?
town? Are we talking about building permits or all permits? Dog permits?
Permits in general.
All
It's
permits.
not
Special
just
permit,
building.
knowing how to navigate the
Yeah,
permitting
right.
system.
The
I
permit
would think.
system,
We're
so,
talking about
so is
all
that,
permits.
is that
Or
more the town
assuming-
administrator? No?
Or the town clerk?
No, the town clerk wouldn't
No.
have a.
I think maybe that's what they're getting at, is there should be like a permit office.
You know
Single
what,
point
I
of
do
contact.
recall that we had this discussion.
We did
in our
talk
master
about
plan,
this.
Yeah, about how there's, well,
Creating a huge permit with
well,
everything.
developments seem to happen sometimes in town, and you say, how did they not know this was the water overlay district, and who's
Right,
checking that?
That is right, we did talk
We
about that.
talked about that, and the need for somebody who kind of had their fingers on all of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
things. Maybe that's what this is addressing, that
And
somebody.
it wouldn't be just the building inspector, because the building inspector doesn't know all of those.
It would have to be conservation,
Right.
Right.
commission, yeah.
But right
And
now,
as I recall, it wasn't necessarily a person, but you had a checklist which forced,
Right.
which is going to drive every developer nuts, because that drives them nuts anyway. They have to go through this board, that board, that board. But if you're going to consider all these things, and
Planning
protect-
and
if the town
conservation.
thinks it's important to protect these things, that's what's got to be required.
so at this point in time though, don't a variety of committees have to sign off on various permits? No?
But they don't necessarily work together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is what this is
Right, it's
aiming
talking
at,
about one
perhaps, is to
person.
have a single person who will direct whoever, the developer, to all the different,
Okay.
um,
All right. Okay, well then this, shall we say it's specific
It's,
then?
yeah.
Or
Specific.
someone will bring a permit in
Mm-hmm.
and, present whatever information they need to present and give it to a person that will then go get signatures for them. Like, they're the permit office, like, you'll give them all your stuff and so you're not chasing people
Right,
around.
'cause I think
Yeah,
that
and
was
then-
part of
then
this,
it's
the chasing.
their job then
Right.
to take
Right.
it through the rest
Right.
of the steps.
Because I think
But I
it was
don't know that we
asking
have
a lot
anybody
for
like
people
that.
who were building or developing to do
Try to
that
figure
chasing.
out where everybody is.
I don't know where the, Conservation Commission is, how do I connect with them? What,
Right. People that don't have
chasing
actual
them down for a
offices.
signature?
Right, yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right, so the way this reads though, appoint a single point of contact, be responsible for coordinating the applicant's efforts. So it does sort of lead you to think that that would be the person that would be running around getting the signatures. So,
Or at least directing them, because they can say,
Direct.
go to this meeting
Yeah,
on this
I
night,
think,
whatever.
yes, I
yeah,
think.
exactly.
and you have to do,
Right.
go before you
Yeah.
got.
For this kind
yeah.
of permit, you need these 5 signatures and you need
And
to.
that certainly
Yeah.
isn't the building inspector.
Okay,
Right.
all right, so it's specific, measurable,
Yeah,
Yes,
attainable,
I think it's a good.
relevant?
yeah, I think it's an important strategy.
I think it works all the way
I
across.
think if you had someone-
Time bound, what do you think? Are we,
That one might have to be blank.
Yeah, I'd leave that.
our time bound ones are always a challenge
Yeah.
anyway.
Yes,
Blank.
blank for
Blank
now.
on time, but everything else is okay.
Yeah, I think if you had a person in a permitting office where you could say, hey, I want to build a garage, or,
Yeah.
you know, I have pets, do I need a
Right.
permit for to have them? Do I have to pay you something? You'd be like, oh yeah, you just gotta do this, do. Go see these people. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So it's inclusive, and it would be, if it is this, functions this way, it would be inclusive and equitable.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it'd be good.
I mean,
Because
Yeah.
at least, yes.
It kind of all ties together, that 3B and 3C here as we go forward.
Right.
Maximize town website, okay, and create a one-stop shop, which is essentially what we're saying, for
Yes.
permitting documents and forms from many departments.
And I think they've done a lot
I
of that.
think some of that is online
Yes.
already, yeah,
Yep.
I
exactly.
think they're right.
so does that, by providing that online, does that eliminate the need for a person as the contact?
I think the person is maybe more for questions and just guidance, whereas the online thing is just like, here's some forms.
And we don't know if everything is online.
Right.
Yeah,
So the person would own that part of it too.
Okay.
yeah. So it definitely would be,
Or maybe just to have someone, if someone just had general questions about it,
Yeah.
they might not need a form, but hey, oh, I want to do this and this, do I need a
Yeah.
permit?
but see then,
They would hopefully.
as we continue down, they all tie together very tightly here. They're just they're almost like subsets of the same, same one.
Now, is it time bound?
Create a one-stop shop for permitting reforms and property requirements.
I think you could slap a time on that.
I would say.
Yeah. It would be inclusive and equitable for everybody.
It would really just be
Yeah.
uploading documents.
Yeah.
That could be part of the duties of the point of contact.
Right.
They would have less work if they created this guidebook and.
Right.
Here.
So we have three more.
Yep. So 3C, permitting guidebook for the town as a quick reference guide. So,
Now, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, again, these are almost
Very
all saying the same kind of
Yeah.
very
How,
specific.
yeah, how is that different, the guy, essentially, how is the material that would be offered in that different from the one-stop shop?
To me, they're one and the same. Or you go to a
Right.
one-stop shop and get your guide. I mean,
Well, so I think the
Why is it
one-stop,
two strategies?
I think the one-stop shop, I think they're really just referring to having all the forms.
The forms
Online.
themselves. So you would
Available.
actually,
In one-
you would actually go download the forms you need
I think that,
in a particular place.
I think the guidebook might be closer to
To D.
the person.
Yeah, but,
You know, they'd be able to have somewhat of the same information where you would think the person would be able to maybe help
The
you. with that.
guidebook
like
could even
one-
be a little
one
trifold
website to me.
and go here and do.
Right.
yeah. So a quick reference guide, I'm trying to think of other things, the kind of permits that you might want to get other than a building permit. I mean, it would just tell you that if you want to do this kind of permit, you have to do A, B, and C. If you want to do this kind of
Right.
permit, you've got to do A, B, C, and D.
Right.
Right, so it's gonna separate, it's gonna, what do I say, categorize for you how much you have to do, but then you'd go to that other thing to find the actual form that you have to download. So this just kind of short circuits it and says, okay, you only need to do these 3 steps as opposed to 5 steps. And you have to go over there and
And
download your
if
forms.
you look at D, it's almost,
And then it's permitting flowcharts and checklists to guide them through the
Right, I
process.
feel like D is almost maybe like a
D
little
and-
more detailed
C
version.
D and C are kind of together, I think,
Yeah.
because oftentimes the visual of a flowchart makes it life a lot easier for people to understand what they have to go through.
I
So
mean, I think all of these are,
I think
Yes,
they make
it's
sense. I
for
think
me.
they could be consolidated, they could be rewritten and be consolidated, but,
Yeah,
but you're okay with yeses?
yeah.
yeah.
for both of those.
Yeah, for the
C-
next,
C and D for short, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. It's interesting, though, D talks about available at the town website and at the building department office, so that's almost,
Right, so they're putting it out.
Assuming that it's only the building, permits, which is,
Well, I think right now, the building department functions in that capacity is like
does it?
Right.
referring people,
Not everyone has online.
coordinating.
that's what I was going to say.
Right.
It's to make it more accessible. It makes it more equitable to
Exactly.
have them in
Okay.
both
Inclusive.
places.
And I think that's probably why they would have
Yeah.
a person.
Okay.
You know, if people don't want to go online, you
Yeah,
have someone
and then
available
many
to
people,
True.
that's true,
tell
many
you
people
where
can't,
to go.
for the time being, anyway.
And right now, where is the building department office, since I don't know?
Downstairs.
Which part? Where? I don't even
Where
know.
the arts office is.
Is it arts office?
Three more.
No.
Building department, what is that? Is that the building inspector's
I
office?
didn't think so.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, so we like C and D, right?
I mean, I thought we had 3 more, I'm looking.
We're at E.
Here we have one more.
Okay.
I think there's only
No,
2
we
strategies left
yeah.
in 2 in all the goals,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we could just finish the 2.
Okay, so 3E
Mike might
is where
be
we are,
happy.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so ensure the zoning bylaw and subdivision regulations have clear submittal requirements for permit granting boards to help encourage uniformity in the review process.
I feel like there is, I mean,
Let's read that.
I don't know whether there is uniformity in the
Subdivision
review
regulations.
process.
Permit granting boards. For permit granting boards to help encourage uniformity in the review.
They all use different criteria. I mean, I would think.
oh, I just read that as, if you've done everything on your permit requirements as far as signatures and things you have to do, it would be like, oh yeah, you're approved.
I don't know what it means.
This,
But couldn't you have a situation where the zoning bylaw and the subdivision regulations contradict each other? Have clear submittal requirements for permit granting boards to help encourage
Hopefully not.
uniformity in the review process.
Well, they're talking about the process being uniform. I
Right.
think that's fair.
right. This, to me, just reads like another summation of why you have a point of contact and why you have a guidebook, and because the result, you're going to have this uniformity.
So it's kind of the rationale for the whole thing.
And for some reason, there's a lot of redundancy.
Yeah,
in these.
indeed.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you
Yeah.
want to do with this one?
So if we all feel that way, we should probably score them the same way, right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Okay.
Do you want to do the last 2 in the second section of goals?
Sure, we've only got
Yeah.
two to go, and then we'll be up to goal 3 the next
I
time.
think
How's
that's
that?
the
Think we
right
can
thing.
manage?
Mike will be happy we're on 3.
That's right.
Oh,
It's a little psychological.
invest in infrastructure, sorry, I think keep sliding here. Invest in infrastructure and provide adequate capacity to meet the current and future needs for water and what? Water, sewer, and
Telecommunications.
telecommunications.
So that's the overarching goal.
Invest in infrastructure and provide adequate capacity. Okay, so 4A,
There's only 2 strategies for this?
encourage
I know.
infrastructure development and
It's kind of a big
physical
goal.
improvements in
Really?
identified and mixed-use areas.
The hell out of the
Identified
zoning,
commercial
okay,
areas.
done. And then this one is 2.
Encourage infrastructure development?
When
Dear
they,
God.
this is another encourage thing.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I just think this is a very vague.
Yeah, we're back to the big. Isn't that funny?
You
The
wanna
previous
invest
one
in-
was excessively detailed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very redundant. And now we've got this huge thing, you're talking about infrastructure, and you've got 2.
Invest
And all
in-
together,
Provide.
water, sewer, telecommunications,
Right, there's a lot.
only missing transportation.
Yeah, really.
I mean, let alone.
We have to fund the,
Or energy.
the basic thing for that is funding it, right?
Right.
You can't do a thing without funding.
Encourage it.
I just think like even we've talked about having, the internet people come talk
Right.
about setting up a town
Fiber optics.
fiber
Yeah,
optic.
they're-
I mean, I feel like
Tell me a
we
little bit
alone in
about
2 seconds could come up with more strategies than 2 for this goal.
Yeah, yeah,
This
absolutely.
goal is huge.
Yes, yeah, this is,
So again, for me, those doesn't dismiss it. It's just,
Just way
as
too
written,
loose. Yeah.
needs
Well,
to be
it's
looked
not-
at again.
It's not specific.
it's not.
Right. Not at all. It's
So it's
anti-specific.
not specific, it's not measurable.
And
as
therefore not
such,
attainable.
Not attainable. It's relevant.
It's relevant.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's where we could show, the importance of reviewing the ends again. Saying this is,
Would it be,
Time bound.
No.
not really.
This is
Really?
no.
Would it be inclusive? Equitable?
I think so.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
And equitable?
Theoretically, should be, yeah.
I don't know, as written, I might put those as no. It's too big.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just say
Or leave them blank.
needs to be
Yeah, maybe
revised.
leave 'em
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
too-
maybe
just
leave it blank.
too vague.
Yeah.
I think the next one is kind of,
Move it up.
I don't necessarily know what they're trying to get at.
Okay. Then the next one is for B. Yeah. So develop a plan, oh no, I'm sorry, encourage infrastructure improvements, such as sidewalk and traffic improvements through the special permit process for commercial and industrial projects, particularly in identified commercial mixed-use areas.
Like, I don't, what does that mean?
Well, we've done some of this with the new sidewalks up in Palmer Meadow area and College Highway,
Like,
right?
is that what they're getting at? Just-
Infrastructure improvements, sidewalk and traffic improvements.
But that's also not encouraging. I mean, when you redo a road and you're putting in a new sidewalk, it has, like, we had to put those
Right,
sidewalks in.
Yeah,
so-
that may have changed over the course of time,
The
because
state
you don't need a
requirements.
special permit, it's
Right.
mandatory.
It's mandatory now, right?
Right, there's nothing to encourage, you are required.
You're right.
So, I mean, if that was their main focus for this strategy, is mostly the sidewalk, foot traffic, lights in more, commercial, industrial, business areas. I mean, I feel like it's kind of just built into mandates now.
Well,
You don't,
maybe not.
Maybe like the light that, outside of, by Opa's there, by JP's.
Well, another way to look at
Things
this
like
is,
that.
right,
If you have an overlay district and you start building commercial/residential combined units,
Right, you gotta think more about foot traffic.
you do have to think about foot traffic, and I think the reason the sidewalk was put there because they did something with the road, right? And
Yeah.
therefore, that's why it was required. But if you're not necessarily upgrading the road,
Right.
but someone's building, so you might require something of the builder as far as sidewalk and et cetera.
Right.
I think you could even consider, to me, it's absurd that the speed limit there is 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That makes no sense to me. You come from Easthampton, come over that crest, you should be dropping down to 30. You can zip right through
We
past
talked
Paisanos.
about that last week.
It's nuts.
And I think there'll be some modification in some of them,
It's just,
because it goes from like 30 when you hit that line, and when you come to the other side of the golf course, it's 50.
Right.
So on that little stretch of probably less than 2 miles, you've got 30, 35, 40. And then they came up, they recommended increasing one section to 45. So going from 30 to 45 to 40.
Yeah, that was
It
from
was- Yeah,
the credit union down
Yeah.
to Gun Road area. They wanted to go 45. That's great.
oh, wow.
it's-
Yeah. Yeah, you put in the special light there for the crosswalk for kids going to school, or whatever, you hit the button.
and they're still
People can
going
be
40.
zipping through there at 40.
I know.
It's just a
I agree
narrow
with you.
road.
It's
People come
kinda-
down Gun Road. Some came
contradictory,
down
isn't it?
80 miles an hour
You
today.
put in a light
I didn't even see them.
to make it safer, but you don't change the speed limit, yes.
It's a
Yeah.
dense commercial/residential district. I don't see how it can be full.
So
Anyway,
how are
anyway,
we
that's something
rating-
that's
how are
on
we
our-
rating
Okay,
this
then
one?
what are we doing with this one? Let's finish up this one.
Yeah, that's how I think this one does have, it's not specific.
Yeah, I think it needs to be more specific.
It gives some examples, so it's more specific than the one above it, but not,
Special permit, particularly.
So attainable,
not if it's not specific or measurable. It is relevant,
relevant,
That's
yes.
irrelevant, yeah.
just like the one above it.
Yeah. I think it's just like the one above it.
What do you think of time bound?
No.
No. Inclusive
Yeah.
and equitable.
Sure. All
Okay.
right. Does that sound like good enough for tonight?
yes.
I'm ready.
I move to
Good.
adjourn.
Would anybody
Okay.
like to
Nice.
make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Not yet.
Not yet?
not yet.
No,
Oh,
we got to
we
just
get more-
run down through,
Oh,
I
gosh,
just
I'm
want to
sorry.
explain something.
I'm sorry. Sorry. We have any old business? I'm sorry.
Okay. Let me just make sure that
You
this,
saved
it
it.
says it's all saved in my drive, so
Okay.
let me share it with you guys just to be, if I can. Anyway, what I wanted to say is that we talked about the Westfield fiber optics coming. And right now, the 2 dates are out, neither one is confirmed, just so that you can kind of pencil them in your calendars, because they're going to be joint meeting. One date is June 11th, and the other date is June 25th, and I have not heard back from the company yet. The guy was out on vacation, and
I'm not available.
I'm hoping that, I hear from him. He came back like last Thursday. So we've communicated. He said he'd get back to me, but I haven't heard. But just so that people are aware of those two potential dates. Okay?
I would not be able to attend on the 11th.
Yeah, and hit the
The
historical
11th or
commission.
the 25th.
25th,
I could probably do either.
Because, you know, I tried to get them to give, I tried to get this, you know, never mind.
I presume as the days go by, the 25th will probably become more viable for them.
All right.
Since the 11th is not.
All right, so I will get back to him and say that's our preference, and I hope he can meet it. I gave him, since I haven't heard, I'll just let him know. Other things got booked, and so we're
Yeah,
up to the
closing in on the
25th.
11th too, so.
I hope we don't go beyond that, because
Yeah.
this thing has carried forward
It's true.
for quite some time. Okay, that's what I'll do.
Good, all right. So, any other, where are we at? We're old business still? Are we done with old business?
He'll be sending out details about that when it's...
I will as soon as I get confirmation.
And then what about the joint meeting with Epic and Select Board? Is that
With who?
with us, Master Plan and Select?
It would be one and the same
Same
meeting,
meeting, okay.
because
All right.
it would, rather than to have everybody come to two
All
meetings,
right,
we'll just do
okay.
it in one, where we would do the Westfield and would do the update to the
At the
select
same
board.
time, okay.
Or Mike would.
Yeah, okay. Alrighty. And then, new business? Any new business? Any other business? Whoops, I just lost it. Any other business that can't wait until our next meeting? Okay.
Mm-mm. I'm not missing anyone, no.
Okay.
Okay.
At some point in time, I guess we'll just know whenever the Parks Commission decides to replace Megan.
We need to,
We will
we need
get-
to ask him.
We will need to be getting a new member from the Parks Commission, correct, from the Master Plan. That would be the only thing. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn our evening?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All right, let's call the meeting
We
adjourned
got several doing that,
at
yes.
Yeah.
9:08 PM. Thank you very much. This was a toughie. Just in
Okay,
terms of how
so
things are
I
written.
sent it all to you, and I hope you got them.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know how to shut this thing off?
Okay, so we have to just announce what time we close.
Oh, I
The
did.
meeting's
I did.
over.
9:06 is what I said.
9:08.
9:08?
I think you did.
He said 9:08.
I did, I'm sorry. 9:08 PM.
All right. Good